welcome to Supernatural Junkies. It's me, I'm Alex. I'm here with Dr. Kevin. We also have our other lovely, handsome host, Dr. Dozer and Dr. O'Hara. Welcome.
Dr. Dennis is out on the golf course today.
Yes.
He's for everything today. He's not Captain Contrary. He's for
everything today.
Now, what do you scream when the golf ball's coming at somebody's head? That's it? Oh, I wasn't sure. I was like, okay, is there something else? Like, heads up!
Yeah, Doc. So what's your handicap, brother?
About 14.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
14 on par.
No, that's not bad.
He's
for 18 holes?
No, that's per hole.
That's bad. That's bad. He called you.
Sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is. Well, Dennis, golf for me is like a giant Easter egg hunt. Every time I hit one, I go, where did that one go? I wonder if I can find it. Maybe I should have got a brighter color.
That's it.
That's it.
That's funny.
So what are we talking about today, Alex?
Mm-hmm. What do you want to talk about?
She doesn't want to watch these before we bring them up. She wants to be like instant.
I was going to say free ball it. I like, but I'm a girl, so I can't really do that. Wing it. That's what
she's winging it. She's winging it today. Well, we are going to have a great show for you guys today. It's really going to be tapping into some of the things we've already been talking about, but it's really, Dennis and I keep saying this, but every time we look into this whole situation with what they're trying to put in us, it just gets worse and worse. Last week, he even talked us to talk about chemtrails, if you can believe it. And sure enough, we were like, wow. And now they just banned it here in Florida. They banned something that doesn't even exist. It's a complete conspiracy.
Wait, I do have something to talk about. Have you guys noticed all the crazy stuff in the sky at night around?
Oh,
yeah. You guys been looking at the stars lately?
Nope.
Yeah, a little bit. We went to talk.
We have a new puppy from the pound. And
untrained puppy.
Largely, yeah. He didn't come trained. That wasn't an option. And so when I walk him at night, I'm always out there. So I was looking around the other night and I was like, wow, this is weird. So I brought Kevin and the boys out there. I was like, you guys got to see this because I don't know what this is. They're not airplanes because they're too close together. What'd you see?
I saw lots of little lights in the sky. Like
Sasquatch.
Everywhere.
We saw Sasquatch. No, we didn't.
It was very weird because it's not that they weren't moving at all. It's that they didn't look like they were moving. And
Some did, but
it was almost like they were scattered all over the sky.
There was hundreds.
And I don't know whether it's satellites. I don't know how a drone would be up there that long, but
the other night it was drones because they were blinking.
Yeah, they're definitely blinking.
There was hundreds, maybe thousands. That was just in what we could see, but you can see them up there in the sky. You just can't tell exactly what they are, but there's so many and they're so close together. It's hard to really make sense of what they are.
By the way, we were looking for chemtrails at night. We didn't see anything, Doc.
They're hard to spot at night, but if you take a light and a bright flashlight or spotlight and you shine it up into a dark sky, wait till you see what you see coming down.
Oh my goodness.
I might do that
Dennis has got us a new midnight activity.
But wait, that'd be fun. But wait. And then I saw in the lake a little baby gator. He was tiny. He was like only like that big. And he was so tiny that he couldn't float horizontal. He just had his little head poking up. He was really cute. But the big one's not so cute. But there's been a really big one in there, like a 9-footer. But there's also, and I was surprised because usually when there's babies, there's hundreds of them, right? It's not like they just lay a few eggs. It's not like duck or chicken.
Very few survive because they get eaten. They get eaten by birds. They get eaten by other.
Eat more. Eat up, kids. Eat up.
So
he says that, but he hasn't seen that 10-footer in our pond.
Oh, man. That one.
You go out and shine at night, and I'm telling you, you'll see 4 or 5. And this is only like a 5-acre lake. And you see.
Us of the babies. Very few of the babies will survive.
Yeah. That's good. Eaten. We're all for it.
Yeah.
I'm going to get my gator hunting license because.
It keeps trying to get the gator hunter out here, but it's.
Yeah,
there's not many, because it has to be approved, right, by the state, and they have to have a license to do it. And so the one that's for Hillsborough County, we've been trying to get them out here because there'll be as many as 4 in our little lake at a time. And big one.
There's a big one. There's a 10-footer out there now. So
and he's not afraid.
You all hear about the teens that were wading in the creek, and the teen girl was dragged underwater by the gator. They said the gator was about 10 feet.
Oh my Lord.
She survived. She punched him And he let her go. And then as she was trying to leave, he got her again. He took her under, but she just had will to live. And then friends helped her. They drug her to the edge. And then the friend said, we got to move. We got to move. He's coming after us. He's coming after us. The only thing I can think of is, what are you doing in fresh water in Florida?
Yeah.
You can say the same thing about Georgia, in some case, South Carolina. But what are you doing in fresh water in Georgia? If there's fresh water, you're going to have gators.
Right. Absolutely. No matter how small a body of water you think it is, you should always act with caution. You should always think that there's probably a gator in there. I did see where a 7-year-old got taken and she escaped. You know how she escaped? She had gone to Gatorland, a field trip with her, her school class. And they told her, if you guys are ever attacked by a gator, what you do is you stuff your fist or your fingers into its nostrils as hard as you can, because that's soft tissue all around the mouth and the nose. But if you can find the nostrils and jam your hands in there as hard as you can, that hurts the gator. And that's how she got him to drop her, and she escaped. And she was 7 years old. So, helpful tip. If you are taken by a gator, one, go with the roll. It's fighting the roll when you get the most hurt. So go with the roll. Try and find where the nostrils, eyes, soft tissue.
You heard it here first on Supernatural.
Jam your fingers as hard.
You know what? We talk about chemtrails and gator trails right here.
But if a 7-year-old can survive by doing that, you guys can too. So it's a good thing.
We just try and get them out of our pond because we like our dogs and our kids. So.
Remember, you can pick your nose and you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your friend's nose. But you can pick a gator's nose. They don't like that. So go for it.
Well,
yeah, we had a big one in our pond, but they took it out. It was like 10 to 12 feet.
Yeah, they get big. If they start tracking you, then you know you're in trouble. So let's get into it, guys. This is going to be one of those podcasts where you can see, we kind of started it last week. If it looks like grass, tastes like grass, smells like grass, don't call us crazy, but we think it could be possibly just theoretically grass. And I want to show you what's happening in the world, of course, because that's what we want to do here on the Talk Junkies, is talk about what's not being talked about. So if we really look at it, we talked about the World Economic Forum. We brought this up before, and this is, of course, Klaus Schwab going back a little while. So if you look at this was really an announcement. Of course, Klaus Schwab is leading, the World Economic Forum. This is one of the most powerful groups of people in the world. And he made an announcement. The announcement is that they are acquiring divine powers. And specifically, who's bad guys? Yeah, that Jesus guy. He's fake news. So isn't that interesting? But then in his interview, this is what he says.
Can you imagine that in 10 years when we are sitting here, we have an implant in our brains, and I can immediately feel, because you all will have implants, and we measure your brain waves, and I can immediately tell you how the people react, or I can feel how the people react to your answers.
So I wanted you guys to hear that he's talking about brain implants. Now, if you think about it, back a few weeks ago, we talked about how the 666 patent taken out by Microsoft requires a brain implant, because notice he's saying that you're able to see and hear what these people are thinking and feeling. And that's exactly what an artificial intelligence will be able to also know about you. Who do we know, Dr. Dennis, that seems to be really good at making brain implants?
Oh, good old Elon.
Elon Musk. So I think we're going to have an episode where you can see that some people are saying some good things, but then you also have to look at what else are they saying. And of course, Elon Musk is another one of those people. And then I want to show you this little slide right here, because what he talks about is how your cell phone's actually going to be in your body. So here is Peta Lundmark. Again, he's talking about how in the future, just a few years from now, maybe only 5 years, I think it was 2030, your cell phone will be in your body. Okay. And that means you're going to have a digital currency, digital ID, but that's just really the beginning of what they have planned for us. Here we have my wife and I's favorite person in the world, Greta von der Leyen, talking about vaccinating people against being able to think wrong.
Well, I'm just curious. So when the cell phone's in our body, does that mean we won't be able to get wet anymore?
That's right. They're finally going to be waterproof.
Right. Apple still won't cover it, though. Ever.
What keeps coming out here is that they clearly want to get access to our minds. And that's where this mind control, and I think back to the mark of the beast, it talks about everybody who takes this mark also worships. There's this parallel thing. And I thought to myself, how can you think about all the jerks in the world, right? Some people would never worship Satan just because, hey, they would only worship themselves, right?
Yeah.
What are you saying, sweetie?
Nothing. I said nothing.
She's saying,
You saw nothing.
she's saying we saw, we thought nothing. That's really important that you see that they're trying to get to your brain, and you're talking about censoring your ability to think wrong. But then we get to maybe the most evil man on the planet talking about how he can give us something that he's going to call a vaccine that's clearly not a vaccine. And this is what he really says he can do with it.
Humans are now hackable animals. The whole idea that humans have, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will. That's all.
So here he's saying, he says it, your soul. Okay. If you think of as a pastor, Dr. Dozer, what's your main goal when you go out and try and work with people?
Well, the main goal is to, if the person is not born again, to evangelize and bring the person into a relationship with Jesus Christ. And of course, that's going to take his grace and the presenting of the gospel. That's my main goal. The second is to equip people. That's when we go from the preaching aspect to the teaching aspect, to equip people in order to have the life that Jesus intended and will for us to have. That's the second.
So, Dr. Dozer, what would it feel like if you met somebody that said, hey, my goal is to steal your soul?
Okay, the first thing that with me, that's not about to happen. There's something that most likely is going to have to be offered to you, or the person is going to have to tempt God by giving the person a dare.
Yeah.
That's the only way I see it. And so what you do then is, and I would like to come at this notion about free will. And the truth of the matter is, our will per se is we have a will. We are free moral agents. And that says we have the freedom to make choices. But our will, when it comes to this, our will is not independent of an influence. And there's an influence as either of God or is of Satan. There's going to be one or the other. And we yield that over to one or the other, and we do the will of that individual. As the word says, whom he foreknew, whom he ordained, he also foreknew to be conformed to the will, to be conformed to the image of his son, to be conformed to the image of his son. And so if I'm going to be conformed to the image of the Son of God, then I'm going to have to yield to the will of God. If I am going to do the things of Satan, the things that are against God, I'm going to have to yield my will over to such a thing. Satan would love for us, and even some people teach that. There's a difference in free will and free moral agents. And some people would love for that to be the case. But even those who will yield over, what they're going to do is yield their will over to take such a thing. And this is when we look in the book of Revelation. You mentioned it earlier, not just Revelation, but also the book of Romans. Those who refuse to yield their will over to the will of Satan, we could say in the person of Antichrist, there'll be suffering for them.
Yep.
But what follows that, because you've yielded to the will of God, and which is going to cause you to go through certain things, there'll be rewards of glory for you. So this is the way that I look at it. I believe the only way that a person can get through this thing is just that powerful as you. I believe the only way a person can get through this thing is to yield over to God.
That's right.
It's going to be just that powerful, just that demanding, just that much coercion, just that much pressure. If you think you have it now, like some people had it, those who took the vaccine, and there's no sense in us being secretive, because when you're secretive, you don't help people. I didn't take it. I knew from the beginning it wasn't getting ready to go in my arm. Okay. But you saw what happened. The military, some of your elite military personnel were forced to go out, hospitals, doctors, jobs. And so the pressure is so immense. There are people who look at their physical lives on earth and they love it too much to lose it. And so they're going to give it over to them. But then there are others who realize there is a hope, there's an expectation, there's a blessed hope. They're going to be willing to lose whatever they have to lose. So it's going to be just that powerful when I take it from a biblical standpoint.
So, Dr. Dennis, how do you feel? I mean, somebody just told you, I'm here to take your soul, right? I mean, you look at everything that Dr. Dozer just said there. This is what his goal as a minister of the gospel is, to save your soul. And what is this man's mission?
To destroy your soul.
That's right.
I agree with what Dr. Dozer was saying, is that, a lot of people say, oh, we have free will, and so forth. Yeah, but your will is controlled by who you obey.
That's right.
If you obey God, your will is controlled by God. And Paul even went as far to say that we are bond servants of Jesus Christ. And if you're not of Christ, then you're of the devil. I mean, unfortunately, there's only two choices. So what I see happening here, and how it's the insidiousness of the implication of these things, where people gradually and incrementally accept what's being thrown to them, and then through that acceptance, they're bringing it into their life, and at one point they're not going to be able to reject it, and that way it just follows down the road. So they don't even know that there is a will, or they don't even know that someone is going to take my soul. For half of these people don't even believe there is anything besides matter. They don't believe in the metaphysical or the spiritual. So they don't even know that they're being controlled by an outside influence that they're under, because they're not under Christ.
Well, I think, one of the things we have to remember is that when God created the Garden of Eden, he actually created the fruit of the knowledge of tree of good and evil. But what we have coming now is not something that God created. This is something that Satan has created. And we want to show you in this podcast that he's working very hard with his minions to create something for us. And that's what we want you to see, that the fact that this technology is coming into the world tells you that Satan is about to come into the world.
Wow.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm just thinking it's the same thing, it's Satan's still playing it, he's not terribly original. So it's still the same temptation, right? Take this in and you'll know how other people think. You'll have this knowledge, right? Where we heard that before, that you shouldn't have, right? I don't know about you, but knowing what other people are thinking, I mean, I know what my own stupid head is thinking all the time, and that's not always so great. So I really don't want to hear what other people are thinking about what I have to say. I can only imagine. Does that sound that tempting to any of you guys? To anybody that has God in them and has the Holy Spirit living inside of them? Does that really sound all that tempting? Because you're like, no, I know that man's thoughts are corrupt. I know that the only way that I can get out of that trap and in this fickle heart, this human heart that I have, is if I trust the Lord, right? And so I don't really care what other people are thinking of me. To me, that would only make things worse. If you're a sensitive person, I could see to where that could be very damaging. And unless they deaden the part of you that also feels things, can you imagine hearing what people are thinking about you, or knowing what they think about what you just said, or you walked into your room 24/7? How horrible. That sounds horrific to me. So anybody that wants to do that, that's a power trip, right? That's got to be a power. I know at all times what people are thinking of me, like Oz or something, that giant head. I don't care.
Go ahead.
Could you imagine Frank Torpet put up a good, he goes around to college campuses, and he brought up something very interesting, because one of the kids were asking him about decisions and everything. Like, he goes, well, if you knew that there was a billboard over your forehead that showed what your thoughts were, you wouldn't even leave, nor would I. It wouldn't even leave the bathroom in the morning.
No.
I mean, but so for someone to sit there and presumptuously to say, I know what you think. I think some of this stuff, Kev, is it's got to be projection, or it's just total deception. Because I believe that, I know we're going to get into it, that they have done something with those injections that maybe possibly put in what they think is like a communication system. But I still can't grasp in my mind how they think that's going to be a two-way and I'm going to read your mind, and you're going to read my mind, and so forth.
Well, just remember that the 666 patent has something that can read your brainwaves so that it knows what you did, what you said, and then can credit you with social currency or detract from your social currency so that you, again, controlled who is buying and selling.
But think about this, because him saying that made me realize, like, so when Glenda, the bad witch or whatever, says, what's her name?
I don't know. Ursula?
Vander, whatever.
Greta Vanderlei?
Vanderpump. I don't know. Whatever her name is. See, she talks about wrong think, and I was thinking, like, wrong think to who, right? So in order to be able to socially credit somebody, you have to have an established idea of what's considered wrong think, right? So, because they can't really, so just by reading somebody's telemetry, you can't exactly read their thoughts, right? I mean, it might be like, oh, they're feeling shame, or they're feeling some feelings of doubt or shame or whatever this goes. But so the only way they could do something like that is if they had a set standard of what is wrong think and what is right think. So anybody that doesn't agree with them, that's wrong think. So then you get demerits, right? You get credits taken, or you don't get to get groceries or something so that's what that's the bigger picture you guys should be thinking about, and should be more worrisome, is that we're going to come up with a list that these people, which I don't trust in the slightest, are going to decide what is wrong think. Like, if I don't agree with somebody misgendering themselves, is that wrong think? Could be. We don't know, because we're not the ones that get to decide that.
Well, interesting going along those lines. Sorry, Kev. That they just think about how they censor us now. So it's all algorithms, right? So if you go against the algorithm, then they censor what you're saying. They cut you off the internet.
Yeah.
Now, don't forget that most people are doing that on their cell phone, right? So they're sitting there on their phone. That's their communication. Well, now you put that phone in your head. Maybe that's how they plan on doing.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I want to show you some of the technology we covered just on the last show to show you that they're doing something about this. And so what we're seeing are precursors of something they plan to roll out at some point. But at the same time, you can see that the 666 patent really embraces where they're going. But here's Dr. Carrie Madej. We covered this little short clip of her. And on this particular show, she's talking about DARPA hydrogel and how, Bill Gates even admits that this stuff is in there. And because it's in there, maybe we should use it. And when people don't take the vaccine over there, they really did lose their social currency. Their chip cards stuff wouldn't work. The banks wouldn't work. So you can see this is the implementation of what we're going to see worldwide. Now, this is a patent that we covered on the last show, of course, by Karen Kingston. And then she also covered how they've done these, basically looking at the blood work and seeing all of these rare earth minerals. Again, these are things that we see and find in cell phones. And then when you start to look at this, ingredients being put inside of us, the question is, what could they do with them? Now, we've already talked about all the nano-robots that can be used, but the other side of the coin here is the technology we showed that came out of Rice University.
What we've designed, and we've done this very, very quietly, but we're glad to now release it to the world, is this idea of Teslaphoresis, which is a discovery we made several years ago, and we've been developing it.
Now, what they just showed you there is that inert, ingredients put on a regular old slide. When they expose the right frequencies to it, all of a sudden it starts to form its own circuits. And this is directly tied to the graphene oxide that we've been seeing in the vaccines around the world. And of course, we covered this from the expose where the FDA confirms graphene oxide. Of course, then that study completely goes away, by the way. And we also had this big breakthrough whole IBM, because graphene is the smallest really ingredient in the world, that they can actually use it now to make microprocessors, that are 10,000 faster than the standard ones. So what I'm trying to get at there is that these ingredients may not look like anything, but once they expose them to the right frequencies, then all of a sudden you see something appear. Now, this is where we lead us to our next discovery to show you that this is exactly what happens when people look at the butt. And of course, we've covered Dr. Carrie Madej, Dr. Sandra Both. There's been a number of people talking about the kinds of things that are being seen in the blood. But check out this video.
A brand new study using an extremely powerful microscope looked at the contents of 4 different COVID vaccines. In this study, the authors claim to have found artificial nanostructures, which they refer to as self-assembling nanostructures, which looked like this. The shape of these changed over time and were particularly responsive to external electromagnetic fields. You might not know that there are numerous other accounts. We're talking like more than 40 or 50 individual accounts of scientists with genuine expertise in the field who have found something very similar. They found 3D nanostructures in the shots, and some authors have speculated or said that they closely resemble carbon nanofibers and might be graphene oxide.
So here is a core shell magnetoelectric nanobot, magnetoelectric nanorobot, a remotely controlled probe for targeting cell manipulation. Now, they're going to try and sell this as a great medical breakthrough. But listen to what it says here. We demonstrate them as unique family of inorganic magnetoelectric nanorobots controlled remotely, through magnetic fields to perform cell targeting, permeation, and transport.
What are micro and nano robots? Well, these are basically tiny little machines, pieces of technology. They're invisible to the naked eye. You cannot see this, but these things can be implanted into the body either by injection, inhalation, or even through the gut. Now, they can be programmed to achieve certain effects, and they can be used as what are called biosensors, so they can receive information from external sources or from internal sources, and then they can transmit that information.
Now, all of this is well and good, but what's the real goal of this nanobot revolution? It's to create what they call an internet of bio-nano things, okay? If you read down here, the main objective of this emerging network framework is to enable direct and seamless interaction with biological systems for accurate sensing and control of their dynamics in real time. Okay, now that can affect almost any system, even the brain. And what is this internet of bio-nano things? If you'll see, it's exactly what we saw in the 666 patent, which is connecting you, to the internet, connecting you to an artificial intelligence. And that's what that really means. So you can see that they're absolutely pursuing this idea of making us part of the internet of bio-nano things, which is, again, bio means organic material, nano meaning robots. And you can see this is their direction and their goal. So I'm going to stop there just to give you guys a chance to even process, what's happening here. But Dr. Dozer, what do you make of all this?
Okay. When I look at this, I think of Isaiah 54:17, where the scripture says, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that is against you in judgment, you shall condemn." I've got "you shall condemn." And I'm looking at this when it says weapon, anything that's built or created to come against you, it's not going to succeed. Okay. And we're seeing like things are brought up, and then the threats that are made if you don't do it, like you may be called deplorables or they're frustrated with you. But even every time you rise up against you, you shall condemn it, saying that you should say, "Oh no, you're guilty. You're guilty of it. You're guilty of violating the things of God." Now, this sounds simple to a lot of people, but the problem will come when you're not a doer of the word, when you just quote it and you see these things taking place and you think this is going to happen to you. This is going to happen to the people who yield to it. This isn't saying you won't go through anything, but this happens to the people that yield to it. And then when I look at this, I think about throughout history, there have been a lot of evil plans. You can see some of them in the Bible and all the evil things that have taken place are not recorded in the Bible, but every evil plan that you see, it would go so far to look like it's going to succeed. And then God shows he is God. And I really believe with a lot of this. I'm going to tell you, I believe with this because you're trying to totally take over God's creation. You may get some people to yield to this, but it's only going to destroy them and it's going to fail. It will not. These are men who want to be God. It will fail. And this is the way, as believers, this is the way that we have to look at this and we have to believe it. We have to believe that it will fail. As far as your mind, then you have to remember what you see in 1 Corinthians 2. And that's the only way you're going to make it. It said they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. The word of God says we have the mind of Christ. And the natural man cannot understand these things because they're spiritual discerned. I don't care what they try to pop on you. They can't read your mind when God has control of your mind and he's dealing with it. They couldn't even understand what was going across on that. It would be people who yield to this because maybe you have the pride, and I believe it was mentioned earlier, I'm not sure about Satan, the things that he offers, because you think you're going to be something great. And before I go ahead and about this, I was thinking today, and I was looking at it, I was looking at the things that happened during World War II. And the Allied forces did give their soldiers drugs. They gave them like speed to try to keep them going.
Yep.
But the Germans with the Nazis and the Wehrmacht, the German army, they went further. They gave them Pervitin. And this in itself is the precursor to what we have today is crystal meth.
Wow.
Stuff to keep them for days. It would say anywhere from 36 to 50 hours before they begin to start feeling some fatigue. And they could march for days without getting tired and it suppressed their appetite so that they could fight. And they figured this was their plan to win the war. And it gave them such great confidence in doing what they were doing. But eventually, the psychological effect of this drug and the physiological effect of it, it began to destroy their bodies.
That's right.
Because when you find a thing in a body that's made by God, that's flesh, that has muscle and bones and tendons and sinews and ligaments and all of those particular things, you may have it where it can go longer than normal, but it will be falling apart when that happens, when it begins to go without rest. And there's no signal saying you need to take your body and shut it down for a while so that you can recuperate. You're going to destroy it. The drugs are going to eventually destroy the brain. They're going to destroy cells. And so this whole plan is doomed from the beginning. They might see in an evil way, they might see some short success as far as what they wanted. But then when it starts destroying everybody, they'll do like they usually do today. They're never going to admit they're wrong, but they'll come up with something, but they'll just ignore it and they'll let it die. And I know when some people, if they're listening, so I want to clarify, when they hear me saying failure, they may hear me saying that that's not going to be put into action. That's not what I'm saying. It's going to be put into action because they're doing some things now. But the thing is, it will not succeed in the way that they want it to succeed because they want to take God's place and he will never give his glory to anyone else.
Come on, Dr. Dennis. Well, he gave you a good platform, Dr. Dennis.
Well, I think he just said the verse of the day is Isaiah 54:17, right? No weapon formed against you shall prosper. I think that is a good verse for today. I agree. Going back to what I said previously, I think the incremental movements of acceptance that the world will accept this and they will have some success with this. But I think we have the mind of Christ and we're in this situation that this, as believers, this should draw us closer and closer to the Lord. That's where you have to be. You have to be under God's wing and his protection. And these people are evil. We know that. And we know we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers in heavenly places. And these people they're under the sway of the wicked one, and we're under the sway and commandment of the Lord. So we have to be warriors,
And the supernatural junkies are not going to allow you, to not hear about these schemes of the devil. That's why we're here. We want you to know that they're putting technology behind the stuff that I thought was impossible. It's difficult to believe. So unfortunately, let me show you a few things that they're actually going to be using this technology for.
So back in 2006, there was a book that was published titled Military Nanotechnology, Potential Applications for Preventive Arms Control. And let's see what they say. So there's a section here, 436, Operations Against Biological Systems and Humans. So living systems can be influenced, damaged, or killed using military nanotechnology by a variety of different mechanisms. They talk about the various ways in which they can potentially employ this type of technology against human beings. So it's framed as though it's in the context of military opponents. However, we know that they're likely using this against the general population. New action from outside by masses of small systems, so clogging of the nose, mouth, covering of the eyes and face, mechanical blocking of the fingers, arms, legs, creating slippery layers on the ground. Okay. You can see how this would be used in warfare. Now get this, traditional or new chemical or biological agents, including application by injection. Interesting. Penetration into the human body with microscopic action. In organs, mechanical damage, clogging of arteries, inducing their contraction. And then it even goes to say about the cells themselves. So in cells, changing of metabolism or DNA in nerve cells and the brain. Get this. Interference with perception, thinking, or motor activity. Control of general mood, pain sensations. Control of thinking, right? This is what they were talking about back in 2006.
Now, I'm going to be honest with you. We have been talking about this for a while, but we haven't been doing the video for a while. And so it's really cool to be able to show you some real stuff that we can't just talk through. But this young man, and I'll have the link for his show, has just done a great job of showing you what we've been saying all along. And that's what it is. We want you to be hearing that they have something planned for us. And it's very important that we realize something's coming we're going to have to say no to. And this all goes back to, who have you said yes to? Because somebody else is also coming, and his name is Jesus. And that's why God's not going to allow this to win. Nobody's going to steal his creation. But you can start to see why maybe, just maybe, a government that got control of this kind of technology could maybe never see a revolution, right? The people would never be able to fight. We would be nothing more than rats in a maze. And so you can see why God will have to come back. Because why? If he didn't, he said, none of his would be left. And see, these are the things that you can start to see when you see this rise of technology to do what only Satan would want to do. You have to believe we're getting very close. So let me show you this next part here. And he kind of fills in some blanks here. So this is the study. It's Francois de Cluzel. It's cognitive warfare and battle for the brain. So this is what he's going to be talking about.
He talks about this kind of new frontier of warfare, which is utilizing nanotechnology as a means of accomplishing that. So leveraging neuroscience and technology to achieve military effects is not new, but the revolution and the convergence of nanotechnology, biotechnology, information technology, and cognitive science, including advances in genomics, has the potential for dual-use technology development. So he says, a wide range of military applications, such as improving the performance of soldiers. They want to make like augmented super soldiers. We know that they want to do this. Developing new weapons such as directed energy weapons are already discussed. The use of neuroscience and technology for military and intelligence purposes is realistic and represents a clear and present concern. They're already doing this, guys.
So what are they using this for? They're using it for memory, learning, and cognitive speed, wake, sleep cycles, fatigue, and alertness, impulse control, mood, anxiety, self-perception, decision-making, trust, and empathy. Those are crucial words in your faith with God. And movement and performance. Okay, so they're going to be using this in military-type settings, again, to mitigate aggression and affect cognitive function and emotions. Again, induce morbidity. Can you say that word, baby?
Morbidity.
Morbidity. Disability and suffering. So this is really like Dr. Dozer saying, they're trying to come in and control God's creation.
But I wanted to take this back to Klaus Schwab. Now, of course, he was a child. When World War II ended, he was 7 years of age. He was born in 1938. But his father worked for the Nazi regime. They want to fact check it. His father worked for the Nazi regime. At that time, remember, they were bringing these kids up to be proud Nazis. They were seen as a superior race, a superior people over all other people. If there were handicaps, you were dispensable. But now you want to go further. You even had it, as I mentioned, with the Curvitin, but now you're going to go further. You're going to create a people that no doubt will be a super people, and you will look at yourself because you're creating this, so you're the God of these people. So we have to get these people to believe that there is no God, he is dead, and we have the power over creation and destruction. And there are a lot of semblances. It's just that today you have much more modern technology. And so where then you may have been taking pills or something like that, methamphetamines, you've been taking pills and all. Now you're going to be not the injection of a liquid, but you're going to inject some type of particle in people's bodies to create this thing that you believe that you can create. And then you go back to Harari. If you're not going with it, then you're only worthy of being exterminated. But now you got this one you're creating. This is like a super soldier that you're trying to create. And it even takes away your conscience. Because if I can take that, it's much easier for me to kill. It's much easier for me to destroy. I have no conscience about it whatsoever. I don't have to be concerned about PTSD after I've done whatever I'm going to do, because they've taken my mind. They've got control of it with that particular purpose.
Well, I know Dr. Dennis has to go here in a minute too. Dr. Yenny, we're got one more. I want you to hear his conclusion because, it just makes me feel like I'm not as crazy as I thought I was. Dr. Dennis.
I totally agree with what Dr. D was saying there, and how this affects and how it will affect people. And we always wonder, like, how could this happen? Well, it's incremental deception, but don't forget the reason why they were deceived was because they did not have a love for the truth.
Yes. Simple and true.
So let's just hear this young man's conclusion. And I mean, again, remember, we don't know he's a Christian, but this is the information that we have. And what are we supposed to make of this?
So in other words, the military have been actively in pursuit of finding ways not only to change people's physiology, but to change their perception, their emotions, their cognition, their ways of feeling and behaving. Like I said, they framed it in the context of warfare, right? But what about civil disobedience? People who do not agree or do not comply with the system. Okay, what makes us think that they would not be employing this against people who are considered dissident against the system? Now, we know the USA has a long history of using biological and chemical agents as experiments against their population. There's a long history of that. That is factual. Now, we also know that they've had access to beaming type EMF technology for a long time. This can and probably has also been used against people for various reasons in the past. And what we can see that scientists have been working on is these types of nano-robots, which we know can affect cell function, which can release drugs, which can release hormones, which can affect neurotransmitter systems, which can potentially target specific regions, specific cells. What's to say that they're not going to target specific regions of the brain? Well, we know that this stuff exists already. We know that there are studies looking at remote control probes. You can expose these probes to an external electromagnetic field and govern or direct its function inside the body. That is insane. So this isn't just some crazy conspiracy. This is like at the cutting edge of scientific research. So if we take all of this stuff together, I don't think it's that much of a stretch to consider the possibility that maybe at some point in some of the batches, they have implanted this technology and it's being used as some kind of an experiment. I think it might be being used to influence behavior or influence cognition, thinking, emotion, physiology in some way. And I suspect that it might be responsive to some kind of external electromagnetic field. I suspect that these kind of implants or this technology means that these groups of people can be controlled or influenced in some way, physiologically, psychologically, emotionally, perhaps to respond to certain engineered events in coming times. That's possible. Kind of triggered in some way to do certain things. I think that's possible. Or react in certain ways. That's also possible. I'm open to lots of different ideas. I mean, even the fact that they went ahead and did this is freaking insane. But it seems as though the evidence is lining up and suggesting that they did do this.
So I'm just going to have to say and jump in here. I don't know that he knows Christ, because we have been hearing what was going to happen for 2,000 years. The technology is here. The technology is now. And the key here is that, Satan is the one who is creating not just the situation, but he's creating this second forbidden fruit, if you will, right? And somebody's going to have to go along with that. But the point of the matter is that we've showed you with this technology that you're not going to really be human. Just like he says, we can hack you now. Okay? We can take away your free will, right? Take away your... And I think that you had to hear this a few times from a few different ways. And here's a nice young man that's really done a great job of just following the graphene oxide trail and say, the reason nobody sees this in the blood is because a lot of times you got to have the right frequencies there for it to do anything. And see, this is how some people are popping up IP addresses. But the point of the matter is that we are called as watchmen to let people know and sound the alarm. And the United States of America is also part of this research. They already have this stuff rolling out around the world. We've seen precursor after precursor after precursor. And like he says, maybe this dosing has happened. Didn't you notice he said something about maybe preconditioning them to a future episode? You go back to when we talked about the mark of the beast, we said, you know what? It's going to take something to hijack God's creation. It's kind of like a space station. You can't build it down here. Can't get it off the ground. But you put it up there one piece at a time. And that seems to be what we're seeing. And it's important for people to know, because people have fallen asleep. I don't know if you've noticed this. We're seeing lots of positive things happen here in America with Trump's administration. But I'm telling you, this agenda is continuing to move forward. And we need to wake up. We need to be vigilant, right? We do not need to be unaware of what the Bible has been warning us about for 2,000 years. And that's why I feel we do our podcast, because we want people to know what's happening in the world. And I just don't know where else you would hear this truth that we got to share today. Dr. Dennis, you want to pray us out?
Sure. Lord God, I just want to thank you for today, for this time that we had together to discuss these topics, that hopefully we can help wake up our fellow human beings out there. Hopefully light a fire in the body of Christ, so people would come alive, spread the gospel, and get people to you, Lord, so that they can be under your protection from what's coming. We ask this, Lord, in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. God bless you guys. We'll see you next week.